Everbloom is an upcoming RPG game on Roblox developed by Jazaro X that I happen to be a contributor for. They had a public test that lasted a few weeks starting on New Year's Day, and today I'm just going to be talking about some of the things that I made that are Everbloom related here. Some of these aren't in game, some of these are. I'm going to say this right off the bat: please do not harass the dev team over anything you see or that I say here. So this first variant right here is the fungal variant for the seedling race. Now this was in game at first, although heavily redesigned, but it eventually got removed for, quote, being too ugly. Yeah, this is one of the first ones I made, and this was the second one I made. This never got in game, mostly because the flower didn't really fit in the game. It was too busy, too many parts. And also these like rotated bits, they don't really fit the style of Everbloom. If you have rotated bits, it should be like these guys, not too crazy. Yeah, I do like what I did here where I like chipped the lily pad. Definitely one of my older works. It has some flaws, and this was the third variant of the original 3 ideas I had. This is the pumpkin variant for seedling as well. I made this initially because I wanted to sneak my original character into the game. I'll show some screenshots of him on screen, but this was denied at first because it was over detailed. You can see these eyes have a lot of parts to them. They're almost circular, and the stem over here also does not look that great. I mean, the model itself looks good, but as I said, it's over detailed. So I'm going to direct you to these guys over here. This is the redesigned version. As you can see here, it's a lot more simple, a lot less parts, more square, less circular, and it ended up turning out a lot better than I expected. And this is the variant you can see in game today. There's some small differences in the eye holes here, like there's a little bit of orange on the sides, but that's pretty much the only change. Now we have these little otters over here, as well as this balloon guy, but I'll get onto him in a minute. Now these otters were based on a race I made for a different game entirely. This was probably like one of my first more detailed variants. I'm kind of proud of these guys. I think they're cute. I think they look nice. Unfortunately, they won't be in game. That's okay. I still had fun making these. Now this one didn't really get too far. It doesn't really look that great. It doesn't even look like a balloon, if I'm being honest, and it's kind of a silly idea. I'm just gonna skip past that one because I'm not too proud of it. I guess I can say it's based on the shiny red balloon from Terraria, but that's about it. And now I have a few more things to say about these guys. This is the wild horn race, which is a race of goats. I made these because Joey, which is the same person as Jazaro X, you'll hear me refer to him as Joey throughout the rest of the video, and they said they wanted a goat race in the game, but he didn't want to make it, so I decided to try and do that myself. You can see here I made 3 different horn variants. I got this like curvy one. I think this is like a ram, if I recall. This one is like, it goes straight up and then curves down a little bit. This is I think like Krampus, I believe. And then you have these straight curve. Oh my god, what is happening to the camera? You have these straight curve horns. I kind of made these up, and also this face is kind of ugly, but thankfully that's not in game. This was probably one of the most popular races in game, if I'm not mistaken, for the public test. These little closed eyes are in game, but these eyes got redesigned when they were ported into the game itself. These were what the ears looked like originally, but I redesigned them to be more goat-like, I guess. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. You can see here there's a lot of parts, but I think it fits overall. And if you look underneath here, you can kind of see the pink insides, which I really like. One of the coolest things I made for Everbloom, in my opinion. Now I'm gonna move to this back here. Now these were the first like accessories I made for the game. Now funny story, it's not really a reference to a game, but I based these off the Rambley character from Indigo Park because I liked his bandana that he had. You can kind of see how it's like tied up in the back to the side, which is also based on Rambley, but it's not really a reference because I don't think Rambley invented bandanas. These are one of the more like casual accessories in the game, and I'm really proud of how this turned out. This one was way too small at first, So I'm glad I ended up making it bigger because it turned out much nicer in the end. Now we got these gear struct variants over here, and I'll start with this one. Now this is based off the Roblox gear hyper lasers. So you can see you got the same like neon look, and as the name would suggest, it's like a visor that the race wears, and I'm pretty proud of this one. It looks a little bit different in game, but it's in and out pretty cool. And now we have these guys, which if you're familiar with Rain World, you definitely know who they are. This is Looks to the Moon and 5 Pebbles from Rain World. Now these guys will never be in game, and they're pretty simple, but they're neat, I suppose. And now we have these guys. I have a little bit more to say about this one. So if you're not, there's a term called the kernel, which is basically the core part of your computer, what everything runs on. And I was like, kernel, that kind of sounds like something a plant would have, you know, like how corn has its little kernels and every nut and things like that. So I decided to make a robotic version of the seedling race. And honestly, I really like this. I like the wires I made here. I like the little face plate I made, but this is not in game, unfortunately. But what I can say is in game is this guy, the Earstruck Glance of Heath variant. I'll talk about that name scheme later. You can see here's got some neat little insignia. Oh my god, my camera again. Got some nail bolts to bolt it down to the face. And then, so the naming scheme for this was based off, funnily enough, Limbus Company. At the end of Canto 5, Heathcliff is like, oh, those flowers' names, oh, those are named Heath. And I was like, that scene really stuck with me, so I decided to call it the Glance of Heath and make it purple. That's what it's based on. And these guys are, the name here says Chris Titan, but in game, they were renamed to Gemstruck. This is my most original race, although it's still based off another game that never got released. I really like what I did with the crystals here. You can see they kind of have like an outline with a different color that makes them pop. I like this yellow one in particular. I think it looks really good. Although this in game, it doesn't really have that same, it still has the outer layer, but it doesn't have that different color. And they also have these Christmas variants. I really like these Christmas variants because I think they have a lot of personality. This one's meant to resemble a candy cane, and I think it turned out really great. It looks nice. And I want to talk about what I did with the head here. So the head that is in game is actually a mesh. So what I did here is I made the head transparent, and I had to make like a fake head with parts, and then I just, you know, separated it into pieces. You can see this one's red, this piece is white, and so on. I used this technique for a bunch of different races as well, and it's probably one of the coolest things I've ever done, if I'm being honest. I also have this snowman version of the pumpkin race. I really like how this one turned out. Give him the little button mouth, the little carrot nose, made him white, and yeah, I think he looks really cute. And I also want to talk about this face here. Now this face, it's not in game, but it has a lot of personality. I really like this face, if I'm being honest. You may not like it, but I do. It still has like there's a similar like messed up face in game, although it's not nearly as exaggerated as what you see here. And now I'm gonna move on to over here. And I also have these little pumpkin variants. They're still the same, but I tried making mouths for them. None of these got added. That's okay. I think they look cute, but they were rejected for, quote, not being pumpkin-y enough. Which is, you know, fine developer decision. I can't argue against that, it's okay. And I have these different eye shapes. I don't like this one, so I'm just gonna put them over there, and I don't like that one either. You got these different little eye shapes. This one's meant to be more feminine, as well as this one. This one, I don't know what I was doing. I guess it's the same as these two. And then you got this one, which kind of looks like a raccoon. And I'm being honest, I like how it turned out. Looks cool. And then we have third eye. Not much else to say about this one. And then I started experimenting with different mouth shapes, as you can see here. But this one, not too great. Now I'm gonna move on to over here. where I did some more different pumpkin stuff. Now, I ended up like redesigning Pumpkin. It visually looks the same, but I changed a lot of things here. So like if you go to the inside, you can see that the inside is actually a bunch of different black neon parts. And what this lets you do is you can take the eyes and you can move them deeper inside, and it creates these little neat, really neat effects. Little trick of the eye. I like this a lot. And I think it's really cool. And yes, I'm not talking about this guy. And we also have a bunch of different faces that I tried making. This is another redesigned version of the pumpkin that visually looks the same. But what you can do with this one is you can kind of take these different faces and you can switch them out. You can see here, but you can change to different faces. I really like what I did here. Bunch of different faces that you can choose from. Some of these are nice looking, some of them are not so great. And now let's talk about what every Forsaken fan is probably screaming about, the Dusakar variant, which will not be in game. I'm gonna be completely honest with you, this is never coming to the game. But this is my first time making like big antlers, and I really like how they turned out. I think they look nice, they're not too over detailed. And it looks pretty similar to Dusakar overall. I'll put an image on screen if I can find a nice one. And I mentioned my OC earlier, and this is the Rogue Lineage Shinobi armor set, which is, as the name would suggest, it is based off the Rogue Lineage Shinobi armor set. And yes, I know it's from Sekiro. I'm just gonna call it Rogue Lineage Shinobi set anyway, though. Here's what it was originally going to look like, which is pretty ugly, but I tuned it up. It's almost 1-to-1. It pretty much is, except for this sash right here. And the arms got changed, is the arms ended up being made by a different contributor, and it kind of strays away from the Rogue Lineage Shinobi armor. And it also had a hat made for it, which was made by the main modeler of Everbloom, as well as the pants, which I do not have, but I'll throw an image of the entire set on screen. And then we have this Stitch Folk variant called Scarecrow. This is probably one of my best works, to be honest. I really like how it turned out, even though it took me a while. You can see the different ideas I had for the eye patch here, but I ended up settling on this design after some criticism from my fellow Everbloom peers. Worked on a bunch of different mouths. I made a hat, which is also pretty cool. I made some different colors. This one's sad. This one is, well, normal color, but it has a heart on the patch. And also have these little straw bits poking out. Very, very cool stuff. And another Stitch Folk variant is the War-Torn variant, which I have like 3 different levels of War-Torn. This one lost a bit of his shoulder, a little bit of his lower face. This one, well, they lost a little bit more that had to get stitched back on. And this one is the most War-Torn variant, where it lost a pretty big portion of its head, very large portions of its arm, shoulder cuts. It's pretty cool. Making the like stitching for this, even though you can't see the entirety of it, took a while, but I'm glad with how it turned out. I think it looks nice. Probably won't be in game, but that's okay. And then we have the Groveborn redesign, which probably won't be in game, is the original one already looks fine, but I do wish these tribal markings would get in game because they're pretty cool. This is the original one. This is the original one for reference, and this is the remade version with the tribal markings. This one's meant to be like a lotus flower, like, I don't know, a star coming out of it. It's been a while. And I also have these over here, just some different colors of the Groveborn rework. And I also have this guy, although he's more of an experimental thing. He's not really a Groveborn. I think he's cool, but he doesn't really fit as a wooded race. And now we have what is definitely not getting added, the Miles Tails Prower variant. So Tails is one of my favorite Sonic characters, if I'm being honest. And I really like how he turned out. I'm gonna show you we're not gonna talk about this variant, okay? I'm just gonna put him over there. I'm gonna show you a different game I made where I experimented with his, well, different tails. So yeah, I'm here in a different game. As you can see, it's got like different tails that like switch between one another. I'll show you the vanity. So there's like 4 different sets of tails, and they like switch between each other with the transparency property. And when you're sprinting, it gets this like little smears. I think they're called smear frames. They don't look too great, but it's a neat idea. I like it. And this is just a workspace where I use to test this, even though it probably won't be added. I think it's cool. I like it. I hope you like it too. And I'm gonna go back to the main studio right now. Moving on from tails to something a little bit more grounded, we have the fox variant. I tried making this like prominent muzzle, although it didn't really turn out great, so I decided to scrap it and make something a little less prominent. I think this is the best version of the fox variant. And this is, I think it's this one. Yeah, this was adjusted by another contributor for the game, Larcel. This is probably the best one. I like it a lot. Like these tufts, but I think this one ended up turning out nicer. I think it's more fox-like. Although it's up to you which one you think is better. And now we have another gear struct variant because they're really easy to make. This one's the broken down variant. You can see little sparks coming out of the wires that are sticking out of the eye. It's got little teardrops. And this is another instance of that fake head. This stitch folk over here also had that fake head. I forgot to mention that. You can see it's like 2 different pieces, and then it makes the eye little like sink into the face to make it appear more broken. And this, yeah, it's another iterator. It looks cool. I like the different size of bolts, and it turned out well. And also, oh yeah, it was originally going to be like a flower based one, but I ended up scrapping that because I didn't like how it turned out. I know it didn't really get that far, but still. Then we have a cactus rework, which I'm deleting right now. And then we have these guys, more gear truck variants. This one was meant to be like a gachapon machine. You insert like some coins or a card, and it pops one of these out. I don't know how it would do it. I didn't get that far. And we also have this one, which was meant to be one of those tropes where it's like a robot that's controlled by a brain. Move this down, you can see what I mean. It's like encased inside. And then finally we have the leaf variant for Bugly, which I mentioned Bug Fables earlier. It is based off the leaf character from Bug Fables, as you would guess. The antennae were not made by me, they were made by a friend. Everything else was made by me. This neck fluff, it was okay, but I didn't like that. It was kind of too busy. It didn't really mesh that well, I suppose. So as per usual when it comes to making Everbloom stuff, just simplified designs is better overall. I think this fits a lot better than that. And now we have the carrot variant. I made a bunch of different leaf variants for its head, but this one right over here, which also I had some assistance on, ended up being the final version. There's also little lines that go across it. I'll show it on screen in the main game. This is the thumbnail I made for the video. You can see got the green screen and all of that. But there's one more thing that I almost forgot about that I do want to show off, and that is my Jazara House submission, because essentially there was a little, not really a contest, it was more like an event. One of the map builders said, hey, it would be cool if you guys sent in your like little tester house out onto the inside. I really like how this turned out. I think it's very pretty, and this was inspired by, well, we got the glow shrooms from Rogue Lineage, but it was mostly inspired by the underground lab from Bug Fables again, and also the Resident Evil 1 mansion. I think that was what it was mostly based off of. And what this is meant to be, I didn't finish all of it because that would be a lot of work. Me doing a lot of work, that's crazy. I would never do that. It was meant to be like a huge mansion, but didn't get that far. But there is this secret area behind the statue. This is my tester room, I suppose. I'm not making these books, but I made everything else in the room, and I think it's really cozy. I like it a lot. It turned out well. And I also have these pictures that I made on the wall. there's a story to be had here, but I don't remember what it was. Got the little treasure map carpet and the nice, differently colored floors. Another thing about this is meant to be like an underground thing. If you look at it from the outside, it's very ugly and not very presentable. Got the statue, pretty nice. And yep, I think that is everything that I have made that is Everbloom related that I want to show today. Maybe I'll make a second part for this, but that probably won't happen because there will be very little to add on. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed getting some insight onto my Everbloom models, stuff I made. And now just for some pointers when it comes to making these Everbloom characters. Now, you can use any fun increment you want, but I use 0.025, which is what the main modeler uses, but sometimes I also use 125, which rounds up to 0.013, but it is still 125 if that makes sense. But yeah. And when I'm making these, I like to use the scale tool a lot. Like I'll select that. So to select that, since it's part of a model, you'll do Control, Alt, and then you click. There you go, and it selects just that one piece in the model, and you can scale it however you want. But before I do that, I'll do Control D, and it selects the new duplicated part, and then I scale it to where I want, like that. And then maybe I can move it to the other side like this. And there you go. That's how I would normally build my stuff. But I do use the move tool sometimes as well. And another thing is, remember, I said this throughout the video, do not overcomplicate your stuff. Like, the difference between this one, this pumpkin, and this one is night and day. It is a lot. The one on the left is a lot better overall, and it has significantly less detail. Here's a side-by-side comparison, so you can do that. Yeah, that's everything I want to show today. Probably won't be a continuation. Bye-bye.